It's been a long time since Cornhusker fans have seen their team in a bowl game, but 2024 may very well be the year for them to do it. Enter a new stud freshman quarterback that has looked great all spring, a lot of talent returning to this Cornhusker room, one of the best defensive staffs in the entire country, a very manageable schedule. Is Nebraska in for a year two jump and possibly a sneaky berth into the college football playoff? Well, you're about to find out what I think here in this video. What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel and welcome Cornhusker fans to prediction season. I'm predicting all 134 FBS level college football teams this summer, which means I'm doing your favorite team. And whether you're a Husker fan or not, you should see what I have to say about all the teams in the country. So subscribe and ring the bell so you know when your favorite team, if you're not a Husker fan, has a video up on my channel. Thank you so much for watching this video. It helps support my channel in more ways than you can even imagine. And if you'd like to continue to support what I do here on YouTube, please like, comment, share, watch my other videos, and do anything else you can to interact with the channel, because any interaction helps support my channel on YouTube. And I greatly appreciate all the love and support. And it's time to talk about Matt Rhule's second year in Lincoln with the Nebraska Cornhuskers. How do we do predictions this year? Well, we're going to take a deep dive into the team's offense, into the defense, and then at the end of the day, we'll go through and give the schedule a game-by-game preview and prediction. A couple footnotes before we do start. Right over here are going to be the stats the team either offensively or defensively put up in 2023. And then right below the team's logo, I have put the coaching staff for your viewing pleasure. So without any further delay, let's start talking about the Nebraska Cornhuskers offense in 2024. Where a better place to start than the most important position on the field? And we have to talk about the quarterback room with the Nebraska Cornhuskers, because like the team we talked about earlier today in the Auburn Tigers, the Cornhuskers also had some quarterback issues last season. 135 pass yards per game, much like Auburn in the last video, was one of the worst marks in the entire country. And they do lose two players. And Jeff Sims, who was brought in from Georgia Tech to be the primary starter, ended up having a lot of turnover issues. And Chuba Purdy are both gone through the transfer portal. Sims, I believe, has found a home in Arizona State. And Purdy has gone over to Nevada, a Mountain West side. So Heinrich Harburg does come back. He had 967 yards, 7 touchdowns, 7 picks on only 49% completion, but did provide some good moments for this Husker offense last season. But the saving grace of this offense is here. Enter stud freshman quarterback Dylan Raiola. Oh boy, there's a lot of hype surrounding this kid, and he has looked good all spring. The 7th rated player, according to 24/7 Sports nationally, the number 2 overall quarterback, the top player in the state of Nebraska, and Dylan Raiola is expected to be that starter, and a lot of big things are expected out of Dylan Raiola year one in Lincoln. You also do have Daniel Kalen, who's entering as a freshman, but Dylan Raiola, this is his show. This is his team. That's the way it is trending right now. While you have an experienced guy in Harburg, the talent and the ceiling of Raiola is undeniable. He should, and I think he will, be that starting quarterback for the Huskers in 2024. Running back room, you do lose Anthony Grant. Again, he had some fumble problems, but he is off due to graduation. 413 yards, 3 touchdowns for him last season. And while Heinrich Harburg was the leading rusher of this team last year, this is still a running back room that I think is going to have a pretty good year in 2024. Gabe Ervin does come back, 196 yards and a touchdown on only 38 carries for him last season. He's been dealing with injuries throughout his entire career. Ramir Johnson is coming back, as is Emmett Johnson as well. And you get a transfer coming over from Oregon and Dante Dowdle that I think could have a pretty big role to play in this offense in 2024. Your wide receiver room does lose a ton of guys due to graduation. A couple transfers from last season, and Billy Kemp and Joshua Fleeks are going to be gone. Kemp was that leading receiver last season with 310 yards and 1 touchdown last season. Marcus Washington, a very talented player in his own right, a huge deep ball threat for the Huskers last year. Only 8 receptions for 176 yards. Again, that just goes into the style of offense the Huskers played and their lack of talent at the quarterback position from last season. But Kemp, Washington, Fleeks are all gone due to graduation. You do lose Jake Applegate from the transfer portal, but he was more of a depth piece than anything. So your pass catching room is going to look like this. Some very talented players come back to this program. Jalen Lloyd kind of started to break out at the end of last season. Alex Bullock and Malachi Coleman, who was a very highly recruited player in his own right, come back into the room. You get some pieces in from the transfer portal. Jamal Banks is coming off back-to-back 600-yard seasons with the Wake Forest Demon Deacons, and Isaiah Nair, who just got lost in a loaded wide receiver room at Texas, is a very talented player from his days with the Wyoming Cowboys in Laramie. He has entered this program, as well as another highly talented freshman in Ja'Cory Barney Jr. that could play some big minutes in this wide receiver room. I've already talked about the loss in the tight end, so who comes back? Well, Thomas Fidone is arguably, in his upside, could be one of the best tight ends in the entire country. Fidone had 260 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns last season. Actually led the team in touchdown receptions last year. Nate Borkircher also comes back, and you do get a freshman coming over, a highly recruited player in his own right as well, in Carter Nelson. Carter Nelson is going to be coming into this program, trying to find a stat here. 49th overall player, according to 24/7 Sports, number 3 tight end in the class of 2024. And with Nuri Nuili, I definitely butchered that name, so I apologize profusely, but he was one of your better offensive linemen last year. He is gone to now play on Sundays, so your offensive line returns the names as follows: Teddy Prohaska, Justin Evans, Torner Corcoran, Bryce Benhart, and Ben Scott all return to the offensive line, while you do get a transfer over from Florida, and I will butcher this last name as well, Micah Masqua. He's going to be coming into this room and potentially could be a starter on the offensive line for the Huskers in 2024. Top to bottom, you take a look at this offense, and it is all about the hype surrounding Dylan Raiola in this offense. You have very talented pieces at wide receiver coming into the transfer portal. A lot returns in this running back room. We could see them explode in 2024. You take a look at this tight end room. Fidone's really good. Nelson has a lot of hype surrounding him as well, but it is up to Dylan Raiola. This offensive line has got a lot of experience on it. They got to be able to protect Raiola, but the offense is going to go far if Raiola is willing to take them far. 3,000 yards? Could we be in store for that? Potentially. He is that talented of a player. The hype surrounding him is huge, and I can't wait to watch him in a Husker uniform in 2024. We got to move on to talk about this defense here, and it is one of the more talented defensive staffs in the entire country. Matt Rule has a defensive coordinator in Tony White and a ton of phenomenally talented defensive coaches to bring together what really is a very good defensive roster, and was a good defense last year, especially among that defensive line. It does lose some pieces through the transfer portal. Chief Borders and Ruquan Buckley are going to be gone. Borders definitely the more talented piece there, but again, trying to find Chief Borders' stat line here, one second. And I found it literally right after I hit pause. So Chief Borders, coming off the edge last season, only had 9 tackles. And again, Buckley, more of a depth piece than anything in that room. But Borders was a high upside player that is going to be gone. So when you go and take a look at what is on this defensive line, well, a freshman phenom last season. Sorry, not freshman phenom. I was thinking of somebody else. But Nash Hutmaker was a huge part to this defensive line last season, had 40 tackles, 4.5 sacks, and the former undefeated wrestler from high school is probably going to be your best defensive lineman in 2024. You also are returning Jamari Butler, Ty Robinson, Elijah Judy, Princewell, Uman Mielen, and Carson Lenhart, as well as a ton more names to this defensive line that's going to be supremely talented in 2024. You do lose Luke Reimer, gone to the NFL, one of your better players on the defensive end in that linebacker room. 48 tackles, 5 sacks for him last season. And Nick Henrik has decided to hang up the cleats. He's decided it's time to move on from football. Had 42 tackles and 2 sacks last season. So what comes back in this linebacker room? Well, your second leading tackler in Javin Wright does come back. 51 tackles, 2 pass defended. Had 2 interceptions last season as well. John Bullock, Makai Bayer, and MJ Sherman are all going to be coming back to this defense, as well as you do get some guys coming in through the transfer portal. You're getting Stephon Thompson coming over from Syracuse, and Vincent Genatone is going to be coming in from Montana. So an FCS transfer that could play some big minutes at linebacker after losing what you could argue are your 2 most talented linebackers from a season ago in Reimer and Henrik. You take a look at what this team loses in the defensive back room, and it loses some really talented players. Quinton Newsome was a great corner for this team. He had 37 tackles, 3 passes defended. You also do lose a couple depth pieces in Lynham and Morton through the transfer portal, but Tommy Hill is coming back to this cornerback room. 26 tackles, led the team with 9 passes defended, and led the team with 4 interceptions last season. Ethan Nation is also back, and while you do get Bly Hill in from the transfer portal, you also do have a freshman in Mario Buford that could see some big minutes played here in 2024. By the way, Bly Hill is over from St. Francis. That is another FCS level program, but had a tremendous season over there, hoping to continue that success in Lincoln in 2024. In your safety room, Omar Brown and Phelan Sanford are both going to be gone. Omar Brown, tied for the second leading tackler on the team last season, had 51 of them, right along there with Javin Wright. 3 pass defended and an interception for Omar Brown last year. And Phelan Sanford, 40 tackles with 2 pass defended last season. You also do lose Corey Collier. He is off through the transfer portal. Again, more of a depth piece in that room than anything. So you take a look at what comes back in this safety room. How about your leading tackler? 86 tackles, 8 pass defended, and a pick for Isaac Gifford last season, and a ton of other very talented safeties. Malcolm Hartzog, Marquez Buford, Deshaun Singleton, and Kobe Bretz all coming back to the safety room. Gifford, Hartzog, Buford, and Singleton, definitely the four most talented names I just listed off there. But Kobe Bretz definitely could play some pretty solid minutes for the Cornhuskers in 2024. And kickers are people too, so let's show them some love. Brian Buscini is coming back to do the punting, and Tristan Alvano, while questions surround him, he can still be a high upside kicker that returns for the Huskers in 2024. Only made 9 of his 15 field goal attempts from last season. I talked about it at the top of talking about this defense. That secondary returns a lot of talent. The defensive line is really good. It was really good last season, under 100 rushing yards last year. It was a defensive line that was able to generate 32 sacks, but the defense lacks that turnover ability. They got to start being able to force some turnovers. I think that's going to go a long way for them in 2024, especially with the manageable schedule that we are about to check out here in just a little bit. But this defensive line is still going to be really talented. Tony White is a great defensive coordinator, and the Cornhuskers are going to have a defense to fear in 2024. The Black Shirts will be rearing and ready to go. Now let's take a look at the schedule for the Cornhuskers in 2024, and if my slide would change, there it goes. It looks like this. Any game at home is going to be underlined, while any game on the road is in italics. That's that slanted text. Any game you see in green is a game that I think the Huskers are going to win easily. Any game in yellow is going to be a close, competitive game, but the Huskers will walk away with the win, and any game in red is a loss. And I think the Huskers have a very, very manageable front half of the college football season. Now, the back half is where you start to get into some tricky things, but we got to start at the beginning. You're going to be able to beat UTEP week 1. Great spot here to see what Dylan Raiola is capable of. Great spot to see what Banks and Nair can provide you at the wide receiver position. Great position to kind of play around with some things on the offensive line and play around with some different packages defensively as well before the week 2 game against the Colorado Buffaloes. Now, turnovers plagued the Husker team in this game last season. I don't expect them to have that problem here, and the Huskers, especially defensively, are a really talented team. Now, Shadur Sanders has a lot of very good weapons out there for Colorado, Travis Hunter being one of them, and the Stars are going to show out for Colorado in this game, but I don't see the Buffaloes taking 2 of 2 from the Huskers. I think the Huskers win this game on home soil, and they're going to be able to move on to 2-0 and 3-0 after they beat the UNI Panthers. But going back to that Colorado game, as long as they can avoid that turnovers, as long as they can avoid the turnovers, which plagued them in the game against this Buffalo team last season, I think the Cornhuskers are going to be relatively fine here, and they should be able to walk away with the win. The Buffaloes have a lot of talent. They're going to be able to make it competitive. Again, they got some nice pieces in through the transfer portal. Building a team through the portal is not conducive to a winning culture year after year after year. And I'm sorry to say, Dion, I just don't think it's going to work out for you in the long run. Colorado will be competitive this year, and they will be improved from where they were last season. Not enough to where they need to be to beat the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I got the Huskers winning that game at home. And then Friday Night Lights comes the game against the Illinois Fighting Illini, and I do like Brett Bielema's team in 2024. They definitely could be a team that can pull off an upset kind of win, and the Huskers seem to have trouble in at least 1 or 2 games every single year. This year, I have a feeling is going to be different. They will be able to beat the Illinois Fighting Illini at home after the Illini give them a pretty good fight. There are some good players still there. Luke Altmaier still at quarterback. I expect him to take a jump this year. I like what Brett Bielema has on the defensive side, but I just don't think that Nebraska is going to lose this game. I don't think Illinois has enough offensive talent to get through this Husker defensive line. Huskers win that one, and all credit to what Ryan Walters is doing at Purdue. I think he's got that team trending in the right direction, but with losing Deion Burks, with losing Scourton on the defensive line, and just a lot of overall questions surrounding this Purdue program. They'll be better in 2024. They will not be good enough to beat the Nebraska Cornhuskers, as the defense will shine yet again in this game. So they go on the road for their first road game, and they will be able to beat the Purdue Boilermakers. Now comes a very interesting one with the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. And Husker fans or people out there might be saying, Rutgers, that's an interesting game to you. This should be an easy win. Not necessarily. Rutgers has got a pretty good team this year. Go look at the roster. They got some good offensive pieces, some good defensive pieces. Greg Schiano has been able to have wild success with this Rutgers team before, and Rutgers is a potential team to watch out for in the Big Ten Conference in 2024. They can be a pretty sneaky sleeper here, and it wouldn't surprise me if they went on the road and beat the Nebraska Cornhuskers. But I do think the Husker defense will be able to show out, and I think they're going to have themselves a pretty good day here as they are able to beat Rutgers at home. Watch out for the Scarlet Knights. That's going to be a very feisty team, but I think the Huskers are going to be able to outlast them, and Raiola has a couple really nice plays down the stretch to help Nebraska beat Rutgers in Memorial Stadium. You do have your first bye week of the season right here before you have to go on the road and play the Indiana Hoosiers. Now, Curt Cignetti is entering this program, and this just feels like a game you're looking ahead to that road game in Columbus against the Ohio State Buckeyes that the Huskers could lose. Yet I think that extra week of preparation is going to help the Huskers avoid what at this point I think will be considered an upset loss this season. 6 wins, now even 7 wins. The Huskers have already made a bowl game, which I know a lot of Husker fans out there will say, okay, we'll take that. We don't need anything else more than 6 wins. How about 7? I think they go on the road and beat the Indiana Hoosiers. A lot of talent leaves through the transfer portal. While Curt Cignetti's got some good players coming in, I think it'll take a little time for him to adjust to this Big Ten realm, and Indiana will see their struggles in 2024, including a loss to the Nebraska Cornhuskers right here. Now we enter the game with the Ohio State Buckeyes, a potential matchup against undefeated teams. Again, Ohio State has the game against Oregon before this one, and Cornhuskers, this is where your winning streak ends right here. You're not going to go on the road in Columbus and beat the Ohio State Buckeyes. Will Howard is coming in. They have the best running back tandem in the country. You could argue a loaded wide receiver room. The defense is going to be one of, if not the country's best in 2024, especially now getting Caleb Downs in. Ohio State's just too talented, and the Huskers will not survive Columbus with a win. So the win streak ends at 7. Huskers are already in a bowl game with 7 wins. Let's make it 8, shall we? I think they beat the UCLA Bruins at home. The Bruins got a lot of question marks for me this season. You lost Chip Kelly. He's the offensive coordinator, coincidentally enough, with Ohio State now. DeAnton Lynn, who was going to be the head coach of that team, he's now the defensive coordinator at USC. Dante Moore, well, he's still there, right? Nope, he left through the transfer portal to go to the Oregon Ducks to sit for a year behind Dylan Gabriel and potentially be that starter in 2025. UCLA has got a lot of things to figure out. There are some coaching things, some roster overhaul things that I'm just not real confident in with the Bruins in 2024. So I like the Cornhuskers to stay at home and beat UCLA before you really get into the trickiest stretch of your schedule by far. Yes, that Ohio State game is tough, and you're not going to win that one. These next 3 games, it's really tough for me to see the Huskers winning even one of them. On the road against USC, I think will be really tough. The Nebraska defense is good, but Miller Moss is leading a very good group of wide receivers, even a good group of running backs as well, on the road in the Coliseum, and I think that matters too. I think this is the game where we could see Dylan Raiola struggle. That defense at USC, now again, as I said earlier, DeAnton Lynn is that defensive coordinator, had UCLA playing really, really good defense at last season. He could definitely do so again. This is the USC defense that definitely takes a step up here, and I think the Huskers just fall short on the road against the USC Trojans. Coming back home against the Wisconsin Badgers, what you would feel like would be a winnable game after seeing what year 1 of Luke Fickell looked like in Madison. I think this is going to be another loss for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Not only do they always seem to see their struggles with the Wisconsin Badgers, Wisconsin's got a good team this year. They're still going to have a good running back room. The defense, yes, while it does lose some talent, gets some really talented players such as Tackett Curtis at linebacker coming in through the transfer portal. And Luke Fickell has a team in Madison that I think is going to take a step up in 2024. And I think is ready to start playing with some of the big boys here. This will be a very interesting road game, but Tyler Van Dyke is the quarterback in this system. I think he's going to find himself in a good offensive system, have himself a good season, and the Wisconsin Badgers go on the road to beat the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and then on the road against the Iowa Hawkeyes, Black Friday in Kinnick. I think the Huskers suffer a loss here. What's going to be another defensive battle? I just see the Huskers being able to drop the one, and I think special teams has an impact on that, and the Huskers have one too many turnovers. That helps the Hawkeyes win the game, even though the Huskers probably have the better offensive team than Iowa by far. Offense is the big question mark for the Hawkeyes. So I got 8-4 for the Huskers in 2024. Come on, Huskers, let's do it. I got the Huskers going back to a bowl game. Let me know what you think about Nebraska in the comment section below. Coming up next will be the Florida Gators. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.